Hey guys, welcome back to the Harmony Inspired Health Podcast. Today we're diving deep into somatic healing, how we can use the body to process trauma, repair relationships, and reconnect with ourselves and others. My guest today is Becky Aste, a trauma-informed, I got it right, a trauma-informed marriage coach, somatic practitioner, and CEO of I Do Breakthrough. She's also the host of Your Breakthrough Blueprint podcast, a top 5% globally ranked podcast. And Becky's personal journey is powerful. After spending years trying traditional methods to save her marriage, she was separated and on the verge of divorce. That's when she discovered somatic healing, a practice that completely transformed her marriage, her relationships, and her life. And now she helps thousands of people worldwide break through trauma patterns, rebuild healthy relationships, and reclaim deep emotional connection. Welcome to the podcast, Becky.
Thank you, Harmony. It's so good to be with you.
Thank you for joining me. I know it's 10 p.m. your time on the other side of the world, so I really appreciate your time tonight. I would love to dive straight into your personal journey with somatic healing. Now, you did mention, as I read in the intro, that it sort of all came to fruition through your own relationship troubles. Could you please explain how that all came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. So to summarize it, our first 10 years of marriage can be wrapped up in this chase and run dance. Me chasing, my husband running. And when we were good, we were good. But anytime there was conflict, tension, triggers, we fell into later what I had words for, the anxious attached and the avoidant. So I was more anxiously attached, wanting closeness, wanting connection, feeling threatened by space, and him feeling overwhelmed by that and needing more independence, autonomy, and space. And so we didn't know how to get out of the loop, and it led to everything reached its head year 10, and codependency and addiction and broken trust. We found ourselves both deciding what was going to be best for us and our nervous systems and our kids was to take a break and separate. And we started to have really honest conversations during that time about the very real reality of divorce, that we felt like we'd tried everything from couples counseling, therapy, EMDR, retreats, podcasts, everything that we knew, and nothing was helping us really feel like a healthy connection and thriving until I stumbled upon somatic work. So I can get into that deeper, but that's what led me to doing what I do now. Somatic work ended up being the game changer, buzzer beater, last minute, miracle. And so it's my passion and honor to get to share this with the world. Also got 2 amazing kids, and I love all things girl time, dark chocolate, Bachelor Nation. That's my guilty pleasure.
We will definitely get into all of the somatic practices that helped you through that time in a moment. But I just want to unpack what trauma is and how it impacts relationships, because I think when we think of trauma, it's like this massive physical trauma, like we've been in a traumatic car accident, or it's the trauma of losing someone through death or some sort of like really shocking way. But trauma can also be experienced through, grieving through a relationship that is no longer working or no longer serving us in a way that we perceive it to be. So can you explain from your perspective and the work that you do, what trauma really is and how it can manifest in the body?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the example you gave of a car accident can help paint the picture, because if you're in a car accident and you have a trauma to the head, it's that scar or that contusion that is referred to as the trauma. So similarly, emotionally, our body does keep the score of the trauma that we've survived. So the way that it keeps the score and the way that it shows up is in different physical symptoms that most of us modern day high achieving women has written off as normal, like the headaches, the insomnia, eczema breakouts, autoimmune, anxiety, depression, all of these things that everyone in their neighbor has, right, are oftentimes results and residue from what we've been through trauma-wise in our lives. So sometimes that trauma people may have heard of is big T trauma. And that's often something that is fast, hard, soon, too much, and is a threat to our physical safety. So like a car accident or like abuse or something that threatens our actual physical safety. Little T trauma, even though it's called little, it doesn't mean it's less harmful. In fact, it's argued that it's even harder to heal the little T trauma. This is more the emotional wounds and the threat to our sense of love and belonging, the threat to our ego. And this is more, it can be like death by 1,000 paper cuts. It can be the lack of emotional connection and nurturing maybe received as kids. It can be emotional abuse, spiritual abuse, gaslighting, big buzzword today, overused and misunderstood, but that's really what it is. It's the residue left on our body from emotional things that we've been through that threatened either our safety or our ego.
Beautifully explained. And just on the overused word of gaslighting, can you speak on that? Because it is thrown around a lot. It's sort of the new buzzword, oh, you were gaslighting me, or, they were gaslighting me. So from the perspective of it, gaslighting, creating a trauma response, what actually is happening in that situation?
Yeah, it's used now like anytime somebody has a different opinion, you're gaslighting me. It's like, no, there's different views here. But what it really means is when somebody intentionally and purposefully tries to get you to question your sanity or your reality. And so an example of that might be if a partner, let's say was hiding some secret financial spending, and I saw it on the bank statements that it was there, and I brought it up and tried to talk about it. And my partner was calling me crazy, or, that that's made up, or no, that must have been a mistake, or, oh my gosh, you're overthinking it. Anything that really tries to get me to question my own intuition, my own reality, my own spidey senses, typically in a way to protect their own ego. Sometimes it's not even malicious. It's just their own safety and ego is threatened. And so all they know to do is to twist your reality to feel safe for themselves.
Yeah, and I can see like if that happened over and over again, it's really testing your own security within yourself. So it leads to insecurity and a lot of self-worth and all of those sort of things that come with having to question everything you say and everything that you believe. And then you might be thinking, oh, geez, like, am I going crazy? Like it's a real mental mind game. And I guess that goes to your point, like, the scars that are not seen can sometimes be the hardest ones to heal. Because if you are in a traumatic accident, not taking away from that at all, because that can also lead to a lot of emotional trauma as well. But often the outward approach is a lot more compassionate because you can see those scars. And so how would you say unprocessed trauma affects our relationships with ourselves? And then obviously that creates a ripple effect into our relationship with others, including our marriages or intimate relationships.
Yeah, I would love to speak to that. But before that, I just want to say that comment you made about the compassion, it's totally relevant because, yeah, there's certain traumas that are more societally approved or, we get more compassion or attention for. And it is the silent ones that have their own unique, complex healing journey. Not to say one is harder or easier. Who cares about that? Like everyone's heart is hard. It doesn't matter. We're not in a competition, but it is unique because so many of the scars hidden in silence that adds more layers of trauma because of the isolation. So what it does in relationships is, whether with ourselves or our partners, it just creates disconnection. When there's still trauma that we're carrying that's incomplete, unresolved, still stuck in our body, it just shows up as a barrier. It's like the invisible elephant in the room, the invisible wall between you and other people. And what trauma does is it takes away our ability to be present in the moment. It's got us replaying the past and rehashing past memories, maybe intrusive thoughts, or it's future tripping in the future, having us caught in the what ifs and the scenarios of rumination, of worst case, next shoe dropping, rug being pulled out from underneath us. So it's the barriers, it's the disconnection from self, it's this disembodiment, like just caught in my head rather than in my present felt sensations of my own body, and the inability to be present, which is the only place connection can really happen, right? It's annoying, right? When you're with a friend even, and you can tell their mind is somewhere else, their thoughts are somewhere else. When they're not present, it's impossible to feel connection.
Absolutely. And I like what you said, not liked what you said, but resonated with what you said when you said rumination. I see that a lot in my Vata clients. Like from an Ayurvedic perspective, we look at the mind body constitutions of individuals, and the trauma response in individuals can be quite different. And what I have seen is like in the Vata types of people, that rumination happening, that hypervigilance, that anxiety, whereas the more Kapha type people, we might see a lot of withdrawal, like they're withdrawing from life, from the connection that they actually usually crave when they're quite imbalanced. They've got really low moods, really sort of a depressive state. And the Pitta constitutions usually overcompensate because they're always trying to maybe they use more of like that escapism and throw themselves into projects or throw themselves into hardcore exercise or dieting or something like that because it keeps their mind off the impact of the trauma, and they will often react in very sort of more aggressive ways when they have sort of bottled it down. Is there any ways that you see it sort of manifesting in the clients that you work with other than just in that sort of connection and relationship sphere?
That's fascinating. That's why I'm excited to have you on the podcast to get it from an Ayurvedic perspective, because I've dove into that a little bit, but I'm just geeking out on what you're saying right now. So repeat exactly what you want me to answer, because that just it had me going through my own loop.
Just what kind of signs and symptoms that you see within people that they may have unresolved trauma, other than, I know you mentioned some already, but not being able to connect, which is like a really, huge one. But are you seeing any sort of like out of the box type of symptoms, I guess you could say, of unprocessed trauma?
Yeah. Some of the more subtle ones, just because they're honored in our society, is the hyperachieving and the perfectionism. I mean, like that's what gets you to land job interviews. That's what's praised online. And so it can be sneaky when everyone around you is clapping and applauding and saying like, wow, what a amazing, badass, boss woman you are, high achiever, when really so much of the time it's stemming from this trauma response of maybe running from something that happened years ago or trying to prove yourself because of unresolved childhood needs met. So that's a really common one. Other symptoms that can come up is intimacy blocks in partnership. I know you said, we touched on relationships, but this is another facet where so many women that I've spoken to, where even if they have the most amazing partners, like Prince Charming, does no wrong, no really big trauma within the relationship, if their partner goes to touch them, they flinch, they resist, they pull away, they tense up and freeze. And then their partner feels rejected. And then they're like, oh, I rejected him. And then they're both kind of caught in this shame storm. And sometimes that can just be a sign that whether big stuff unresolved again or little paper cuts build up, your body is not able to tap into that parasympathetic nervous system, that system that says, I am safe, I can be present, we can rest, we can digest. So intimacy blocks is another one. I mean, insomnia and definitely rage, which can be super taboo for women. There can be a lot of shame there, thinking I'm a bad person, when really it's just a sign of a deep, deep, deep fear or wound that needs to be tended to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know when, we first think of trying to heal our traumas, we often think of journaling, or we think of going and speaking to someone about that, like that sort of like that first sort of point of view or point of call, I should say. But what exactly is somatic healing for people that are hearing it for the first time? Like, well, what is this somatic healing that you're talking about that can also help heal? And why is it so effective for getting into those sort of deep-seated realms of trauma?
So somatic, just the root word soma means body. So when you think somatic, just think body. And a lot of the mainstream modalities, traditional ways of healing that we've all attempted is, talking. It's from the neck up. We're talking through issues. We're trying to communicate and listen. We're diving into podcasts. We're scrolling Instagram accounts. We're Google searching at 3 a.m., like all of this neck up. And so somatic really dives into the body. It dives into what are the felt sense sensations that are happening, what are the nervous system responses, whether it's fight, flight, freeze, fawn, flop, all the F words, and how to actually go into the body to move trauma out. So it's important because so many people spend years and tons of money and tons of time and energy just attempting the efforts from the neck up. Even good things like meditation, and I love journaling, like all these things that we're talking about, I still love. But we do those while totally ignoring the body. And the way our nervous system is wired is we've got the second biggest nerve in the whole system that runs from the base of our skull to the bottom of our spine. And it's called the vagus nerve. And it's like the super highway of information in our nervous system. So 20% of messages that run up and down this vagus nerve go from our brain to our body, but 80% go from our body to our brain. So all that to say, the neck up modalities, or in healing world terms, it's called top-down approaches. We're just working with the 20%. But when we work with somatics, we don't ignore the brain. We obviously talk through things. You got to think. You don't turn it off, but now you're leveraging the 80% and the 20%, and you're working with the heaviest lift and direction of your nervous system where it's already communicating.
Amazing. And so what are some examples of somatic practices that you personally have used in your journey?
Personally, my favorite at the beginning, it was just learning how to do the basics of grounding. I was so in my head. It was a lot of intrusive thoughts, rumination, future tripping. And so anytime I was triggered, what worked for me the best was the 5 senses. So I would just name 5 things I could see, 4 things I could hear, 3 things I could touch, 2 things I could smell, and 1 thing I could taste. And it would help bring me back into my body in the moment. Now, other times when I was enraged, or there's just like anger building, resentment, furious, grounding techniques weren't the most helpful in those moments. I needed to do something to expel energy, get energy out of my body. And so for me, one of my biggest works was learning sacred rage. Rage and anger was always taboo, not accepted. I stuffed everything. I would have told you, like, I'm not an angry person. And then turned out I was just like very internalized. So for me, the practices of, even screaming in my car, like screaming into a pillow, punching a mattress, pushing against a wall, these were things to help get out energy when it felt like volcano rising. So there's a lot of grounding tools out there, and those are great to use when you're caught in your, head, and you're kind of in this flighty type space, kind of in your mind. You want to kind of come back down to earth with grounding tools. But grounding tools aren't super helpful for moments when you're just pissed and there's a lot of hurt there, or if you're in a depressed mode, the flop mode where you can't pull yourself out of bed. So in that kind of situation, you want to be really gentle with yourself. You don't want to do sacred rage. You don't really need to ground. You're already like glued to the ground, melting into the ground. So in those cases, it's more gentle, even visualizing movement or rocking back and forth, or soothing self-touch or a hug from a friend, companion, massage. And so it's just learning your own toolbox. There's so much out there, and it's also good to know what's helpful in certain situations.
I don't know if you have them where you are, but we have what is called rage rooms.
Yes, we do.
So you can go, I've not been in one, but it kind of sounds fun. I wouldn't mind it. But a friend of mine was explaining it to me, like you can go into some of them and like smash TVs and do all this crazy stuff. I think it's actually a really fantastic outlet for a lot of people to go and do that.
Yeah. I've done one time and it was so anticlimactic because their music, the speaker was broken. They couldn't turn it all the way up. So we're listening to like quiet music in this raid room and they couldn't close the door and my face shield was falling off. So it made me even madder. But in general, they're great. I recommend them to clients. And even if you're not dealing with a bunch of stuffed rage, it's just fun. It's a fun thing to do with friends.
Yeah. And I guess what, like, for me, like those somatic practices, it's really about getting out of your head, like that logical mind, and really getting into your body in that sort of heart center and feeling all your feels, but really sort of getting into your body. And what I love from an Ayurvedic perspective is we practice somatic breath work. So that is also prescribed depending on your constitution. And as you were saying, like if you're already feeling really too grounded and melting into the ground, like maybe a kapha type of person would be, you don't want to really actually do more grounding breath work because that's only going to keep those energies lower. And so we have like this saying in Ayurveda, like attracts like, and opposites can either balance each other out or support each other. And so we might do things like the breath of fire, which is like, bringing energy up, but really getting into your body. And, through that, you might get some sort of energetic response. You might get some sort of like rage bubbling up, but then it's expressed out of you. And so those emotions, when we can get them moving, the energy in motion, we can then sort of like get them expelled and we can sort of move to that next layer. And with the like the pitta types, there's some cooling breath. So we can start to cool that internal fire and that internal heat, that internal anger. So I really love that as a somatic practice. And another thing that we use to calm the central nervous system, which is really grounding, is what we call abhyanga. So self-abhyanga oil massage of the body. And it just really allows you to connect deeply to yourself, to your body. And I love it when I'm feeling really anxious or stressed, or I've got a really big day coming up. I'll play some really nice sort of yoga music, maybe some Sanskrit chants, and I'll do my abhyanga. And it just melts me, like, because I'm more of a high energy type of person. So yeah, I need more of these grounding exercises a lot of the time, and just movement. Like I really love, moving the body, just sort of like freeing yourself out in the elements is, something really powerful. But I totally agree, for a lot of people, sort of just sitting there leads to overthought and overanalyzing the situation. And it doesn't always serve us just to be up in the head. We really do need to get back into our body and just feel into ourselves. So yeah, I love some of those examples that you had. Yeah. Have you ever done breath work, like a breath work practice?
I love breath work. Yes, I love it. I love it and I hate it. It's like going to the gym, like, oh God, I'm dreading this. Here we go. Because there's different types of breath work. The gentle breath work, I don't feel that way about. But the more, excavation type breath work, it's like, here we go. And then after, it's a feeling that I just wish would last forever. It's like leaving a massage, but better. Like my body feels so good and emptied of all tension and blockages and definitely
amazing. And what about couples who are sort of going through, troubles in their relationships, so therefore they're both facing some sort of traumatic experience through this? How can couples heal together using somatic practices?
Yeah, a lot of the women I personally work with are taking the lead on the healing and are wondering, can I save my relationship if my husband's not on board? That's not the case with everyone. Some husbands are like hungry for healing too, and I love it when that happens. But just personally in my world, it's the women that I see taking the lead, and this being for the first time something that shifts their energy. It's not just some new thing they're learning or some new trick they're practicing in communication, but it's an energy shift that allows their husband over time to notice, you're sending a different vibe. You seem more grounded. You seem more at peace. What is up? What's in your cup? I want a taste of that. So it's so cool to see women do this work and then invite their husbands along without words for the first time. Because so often it's like the nagging, especially for the anxiously attached woman, it's like, come on, come to counseling or read this book or do this with me. And they almost block their partner out, like, oh my gosh, enough. Can you just? And so when they stop the nagging, they learn how to really embody it themselves. It can create an invitation to their partner to really heal with them, go deeper. And so that's beautiful if the partners aren't aligned at the beginning. But for those who are like, okay, now it's full gears ahead, we're both on the same page. I mean, one, this allows for deeper intimacy than you can imagine. And I don't just mean sex. Sex is a part of it, but like into me, you see deep connection. And so you can only connect with somebody else as much as you are connected with yourself. You can only go as deep with someone else as much as you go deep into yourself. And so the more you're able to be at home in your own body and be present to your own felt sensations, to really be there, it just opens up the door for connection that's so beautiful and pure and back to the Stone Ages in the best of ways. I just mean like human connection when there's so many distractions in our world today.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have anything to say on women or even men who keep repeating the same relationship patterns? So, for instance, if they continually choose emotionally unavailable partners or people pleasing or shutting down, like those sort of relationship patterns, and they just sort of like keep going through that and sort of can't get out of that because it's such an ingrained, imprinted behavior for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to the deep subconscious spiritual level. It's a belief, but when we hear that word belief, we think head sometimes, but it's really a deeply ingrained belief in the nervous system that I'm not worthy of a certain level or kind of man. I can't get love unless I'm fawning and pleasing and overcompensating. And so it's going into the root of that and being able to identify where that started. And that's where I like to integrate some parts work as well. If people don't know what parts work is, just watch the movie Inside Out. It's this beautiful description of how we all have different parts and versions of us that are still trying to run the control panel of our lives. So what that might look like in a session with a client is, if they are caught in a habitual people-pleasing response, I ask her, what's the main message there that's running through your head? And she might say something like, I have to make him happy in order to keep him close. And I'll get curious and ask her, whose voice is that? It's typically her voice. And I say, what age? And then they kind of are shocked when they realize, oh, it's like me at 13 and I had braces, and getting to know like really who is that right there that's showing up. And so you can do some beautiful integration work if it feels safe with a client to go back into their past. That's not always the case. Some people had really traumatic childhoods, and it's a myth out there, I think, in the healing world, that you have to go backwards, open the can of worms, dig out the skeletons from the closet in order to move forward. That is not necessary. But with some clients, if that shows up, if it feels safe, there can be some really beautiful integration and completion doing some parts work there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree. I love that you brought that up. Like, a lot of people think that you do have to go up and constantly stir up, these deep-seated past traumas. And if you've already, like, if the clients have already done work in it, they can often be aware that they're what they are and that they're there. And it's like each new practitioner really wants to sort of bring that up within them because they feel like that's the way out. But it's, as you mentioned, it's not always the case. And it's taking a very trusted and individualized approach with clients, I think, is really important. And it does get a little bit scary in this sort of like healing modality and healing world, what some people are doing with, very little education and very little compassion for their clients' needs. It's more so for their egotistical needs. And so I do like how you brought that up. And sometimes, it is like a method that can be done and should be done, but a lot of the time it's no. Don't want to. And that's being trauma informed, it doesn't mean we always have to constantly be re-traumatizing through reliving their trauma over and over again. So yeah.
that's what can keep you stuck 100% or re-traumatized. So if somebody is listening to this piece of the conversation, it's just, if it feels wrong and it's keeping you stuck and in the intrusive thoughts and you can't get out of your head because you're retelling your story over and over and over again, trust yourself, and your body is saying, no, this is not helpful. It's keeping me stuck. And so get curious about either another practitioner, another approach. But it's sadly really, really common. You're right. And I am not surprised, but still every time I hear a client come to me with like, this was my experience in therapy, it breaks my heart.
Yeah. And I think there's a flip side to that too. I think also there's some clients that want to stay in that because reliving their story has maybe given them identity, a purpose. They don't know who they are without that trauma. They feel even more safe in that trauma than moving out of that, because that would mean that they would have to do things differently. They would have to change their story. They would have to be someone else, because what we don't change stays the same. And sometimes they just, sort of get stuck in reliving it because for them, it's who they are. And so I think it's sometimes not even just on the practitioner. It's on the person themselves to be able to go, okay, I'm ready now. I've relived it many, many times. I'm going to move forward, step into my higher self, which is not being the victim of my trauma, and moving forward to happier days. But I would love to know, what is one powerful takeaway that you really want listeners to remember from this conversation that we've had today?
The biggest thing that's coming up for me, because there's a lot of tips we shared, and I can imagine, just depending on where someone's at in their healing journey, they might hear this conversation packed full of ideas and resources and tools and maybe get overwhelmed. Like, which one do I practice? Or I don't want to mess it up and do the wrong thing because they said that this grounding tool is not to be used when you're in this mode. Just hush all of that is what I would say. And what's more important than anything, the biggest, most powerful tool in your toolbox when it comes to healing is radical self-compassion and self-acceptance. So as annoying as this sounded to me when I started healing more deeply in this way, is when my coach would point out how self-critical I was and invite me to put my hand over my heart and speak self-compassion and dissolve the shame storm that I was drowning in. And I didn't like that at first. I wanted to pull myself up by my bootstraps, push through it, like get her done. And none of these tools that we talked about in today's conversation are gonna stick without you really embodying the radical self-acceptance. If you're in a shame storm, all this will go in one ear out the other. So that's what I would like to leave everyone with. You're incredible for even listening to this and letting it absorb into your nervous system and your brain and taking time to invest in you.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom today. It has been a very compact but packed, impactful talk on with so many different tips. So I really love how you rounded that up. And where can our listeners find you and listen to your podcast and all of those wonderful things that you do?
Yeah, definitely the podcast, Your Breakthrough Blueprint, streaming on all major platforms. And Instagram is where I mostly am, Becky_Aste. It is me, not AI, in my DMs if you'd like to say hello. So come find me over there. And I'm looking forward to hearing what resonated with you.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. And if you did enjoy this episode, give us a shout out on Instagram and tag Becky and myself at Harmony Inspired Ayurveda. And same for me. It's always me in the DMs as well, not AI. You've got to be careful these days. Hey, you just never know if you're speaking to a computer or a real person.
It's true. I had someone ask me the other day, sorry, is this a real person? And I just voice memoed her back to ease her fear, but I appreciated her actually asking.
Yeah, that's why I do like voice messages, actually.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to all of our listeners. Until next time, honor your body, trust your process, and keep evolving into your higher self.